Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. It is the second time you're seeing my face today here in the Java Cafe. It is Freestyle Fridays, and we actually have the good brother that some months ago helped create, hijacked, and created this space called Freestyle Fridays. And it's fluctuated. We've had different co-hosts and guests, but we've always stayed true to authentic space, and it's usually centered around Boston Poly and politics and improving the quality of life for Black and brown communities here in Boston. And as you all know, we just came out of a municipal election, and shout out to Michelle Wu, who is the new mayor-elect here in the city of Boston. And I might as well drop it now. She'll be in the cafe next week. She's made some calls, but she will be here live with us. Maybe in studio, but at least here on the screen today or next week rather, to talk with you. But I have some great young men that we talked about earlier today, and they're going to come in the room, and we're going to have some post-election commentary about a lot of things that went on in Boston Poly. And so without further ado, one of them is so busy, they're on the phone, so I'm going to run my mouth for a couple of seconds till they get, I can see him background in the studio. And I'll run my mouth for a little bit until I see them hang up, because, you know, they're just always so busy doing a lot. And so Midday Java, hey, Deprecia, good to see you. Keys, Rachel, good to see you as well. Share this on Twitter and on Facebook for me. Y'all hit that share button. But without further ado, let me bring my brothers in the room in the persons of Darrin Howell and also Anthony Collins, who are both no strangers to the Java Cafe. Darrin is certainly no stranger to Freestyle Fridays. And so I'm going to allow them both to, in their own way, say good afternoon. We'll start in the order on my screen, which is Darrin. Go ahead and greet the people, and then we'll go to Anthony.
Good afternoon, Java with Jimmy's family, fans, all that good stuff. This is a pleasure to be here on Freestyle Friday. Definitely good to be in shared space with Anthony. Yeah, we could talk about your intro. You know, every time I come on, we got some new features and graphics and, you know, things added. So, you know, we got to just shorten it. You know, you got like 3 minutes of us watching that.
Look, I got that from somebody else, because I'd go on and, you know me, I can't wait. And so 10 seconds is 3 people. And then when like 20 people come in the room, they're like, so what are we talking about? So I'm learning a little something, man. But thank you for this space. It's some topics and things that come up that just really automatically go to Freestyle Friday. And so again, we've had different iterations and different folks, but I really appreciate you that day you came on and hijacked and we created Freestyle Fridays. He was like, I didn't talk to James, but we're going to be back next Friday. What y'all think? And so, Anthony, go ahead and say hello to folks, and then we're going to jump right in.
Yeah. Hey, just super excited to be here. I always love coming on, love talking about election stuff, love talking about data when people actually listen to me about it. And just super excited to be here with Darrin. Darrin, we've known each other since like 2018. And so, yeah, just really excited to get to chat about everything that happened over the last few months.
Last few months, and it's been a lot. And so, Darrin, if you don't mind, and you've observed this, you're fully aware of what went on in District 6. And so, Anthony, there, you know, we're going to talk generally about the election, but specifically in District 6, we experienced a lot of what I would classify as old school Boston Poly. It was citywide, and we're going to get into that in a few minutes. But what was if I was to ask you to describe your electoral experience this year with the winner. Shout out to the Queen. We're going to get her back in here to Kendra Hicks, who is the winner, city councilor representing District 6. So the Honorable Kendra Hicks, you worked on that campaign. How would you describe your experience in getting her in office working there?
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was one of the best experiences of my life overall. She's an amazing candidate. She really gave me the space to be myself and do things the way like I think they should be done that have not been the way campaigns have operated. And I mean, it ended up with us getting a very, very resounding victory. So that was really solid. In terms of the other side, however, it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough.
How so?
So basically, Kendra's opponent, Mary Tamer, she sent out this big mail piece to, we're not too sure like what universe she used for it, but we think that it was pretty much.
I'm going to get you to help because there are a lot of folks that don't move in the poly space. So when you say universe, what do you mean by that?
Just the list of people based on a certain number of parameters.
Okay.
So we're pretty sure she sent it to pretty much everyone who voted in the preliminary election and a few other folks. Basically, what the mailer depicted was Mary in, you know, nice soft light, looking very nice, next to a very joyful picture of Kendra that was edited to make her look incredibly menacing. Her skin was darkened. And it was supposed to be like a fear mongering bit. There are stark differences between these two candidates. And the flip side of the mailer just had the most simplistic terms for what Kendra wanted to do. And it said a lot of what Mary said she wanted to do, but it was just entirely fear mongering, entirely racism, and just it was very gross, and it really stirred up a certain, you know, reactionary group of folks, of white racist folks.
Okay. Yep. Go ahead.
In West Roxbury, who then started really going after Kendra, and they started, you know, doing things like they dug into like evictions records and leaked those to the Boston Globe, so that the Globe wrote a piece about the 3 times Kendra has been threatened with eviction throughout her life. And, you know, they reported her meal train that her friends had set up for her to make sure that she was fed. They acted like it was a big OCPF violation and tried to report it to OCPF. So it really, you know, they tried to make it seem like, oh, it was just an accident and it wasn't that racist. 1, it wasn't an accident. 2, it was that racist. And 3, it really, really stirred up that kind of like old school, kind of hateful Boston. And it just made it so much more of a contentious race. And we were worried that it was going to make the margin significantly tighter. But what it actually ended up doing is helping us, frankly. A lot of people were really grossed out by it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people told us directly that they had voted for Mary in the preliminary election and voting for Kendra in the general because of these things.
I saw the tweets. Yep.
And just going over the numbers, there are a number of precincts in West Roxbury where Mary got more votes in the preliminary election than she got in the general election. So she literally lost people who voted for her because of the things that she was doing. So that was really, I think that was encouraging in the face of all that real racism and negativity.
Absolutely. And so that was not confined. And Darrin, chime in here because you, as we talked with Anthony earlier, and you were very active on the Woo campaign in your position with 1199. But then, you know, because we're friends and we share certain values. And so, you know, we had a candidate. And so that sort of experience from your lens, not just, you know, within districts, but citywide, what was your experience as far as Anthony and I have referred to old school ball? Well, actually, you know what? I don't want to form your thing. What were your observations about this election, sir?
And again, Ant, congratulations on a much recognized victory.
What do you mean by we're going to go to
that.
the numbers much recognized?
Like, I appreciate the numbers. I've always appreciated that that perspective, right? To be able to provide that content, right? To be like, it's not apples and oranges. These numbers represent people. And if you don't understand the people of these areas, then unfortunately you're not going to know how to engage and identify your folks for support. So I appreciate it. When it comes to the climate though, and what has been seen throughout the last few years, if you're in it, you know it, right? There's a climate, there's a drumbeat, there's this type of atmosphere that's in play. And right now, for the last few years, change has been the narrative, right? If we think about from President Obama to current, this word change has been resonating throughout time, right? And what things need to be changed, what areas have been uplifted and exemplified, right? And to any meaningful change, there's going to be some resistance, right? You're going to see that resistance through people's actions, right? But if you're in tune to the climate, then you're aware that it's not really going to have the impact that that those that are initiating are looking to get in return. As Anthony just highlighted, that people did things thinking that these tactics would work, and actually it turned people off because you're not in tune to the climate, right? So when we're looking at issues that have been highlighted over the last few years, when you talk about issues around women, when you talk about issues around race and equality, you can't be the person that's trying to double down on that position that's been in place all this time, right? And when people are trying to maintain status quo, when there's a wave of change that's coming, whether you like it or not, you're not going to stop the wave, right? And that's what was being seen. Like when folks were, and I was I was definitely Team Woo. And I heard so many people saying signs, there's no Woo signs. And I'm like, you're not in tune to the climate, because if you're aware, signs don't vote, right? And the reason that I enjoy Brianna's post was she's saying the understanding the approach to engagement is changing. You can't just be visible and think that's going to resonate to encourage people to turn out and support you. No, you have to have dialogue. You have to have exchange. The standouts, yeah, they're visible, they feel good, but there's no return on that investment if you don't know who actually is going to support you, right? So when you're in tune to the climate, yeah, in politics, you got to deal with the negative that takes place. But Kendra didn't get knocked off her game. Michelle didn't get knocked off her game. They stuck to their script, to their strategy, and then they were successful by mandate margins, right? Because of what the level of turnout was. So
go, you were starting to, but go a little bit. Anthony, jump in here as well, because you two can just dialogue and I'll sit in the back and just share tweets and stuff. Mandate margin, what do you mean by that? And Anthony, you can go ahead and share your number after Darrin explains that, but what do you mean by mandate margin and what's the difference? Because I've told people, if Michelle won by 5,000, that says one thing. However, the last number that I heard was somewhere around
you 40,000 up. Like there's no and when it's saying mandate margin, is to say that the majority of people that participated want this direction for you to go in, right? Like, yeah, there's going to be people that clearly want the opposite direction.
Yeah, one more time, Darrin. The majority,
right? Like if you look at this map, the majority of people on this map is saying we want to go in the direction of the positions and that Michelle has put out there publicly, right? We are supporting rent control. We are supporting the message around free MBTA. We are supporting these messages that she put out there, right? Like, and where if it was like half red, half blue or whatever, that is saying some people are feeling that, other people are really not so. So she would have to walk a fine line in regards to her approach around the issues in the direction in which she would like to take them, right? Around climate, around what her priorities are, right? When you have the majority of people saying, yeah, we need you doing that, then there's no, you're not really too much, you're aware of the concerns, but it doesn't stop you from moving forward in the direction that you put out there. Now the question is, how do you get it done, right? You put it out there. The question is now, how are you going to get it done? Because right now you're seeing the city support for your vision. Now you getting it done, the devil's in the details, right? Who's going to be in place to execute on that area that you was talking about? You talked about mass and cast very openly. Who's going to be that cabinet level position individual that's going to be reporting
Oh,
directly.
hold on, Darrin, because we're going to get into that. I want to let Anthony sit back and just cite his mandate margin, in which that's a new term for me, Darrin. Thank you.
Freestyle Friday, just came up with it.
Mandate margin. All right, Anthony, what was your first? Let me ask you, because we love numbers. It's Freestyle Friday. I got y'all hopefully for a good hour. What was your expected? Anthony explained numbers. He said at about 10 a.m. based on what they knew were their ones. They weren't, we won, but they was just kind of chilling, and so what was your expectation? And then tell us what the reality wound up being.
Yeah, so we won in the preliminary election by I think it was 1,252 votes. And so we were expecting it to kind of get a little bit tighter at first. Then when the mailers came out, I was like, all right, we're probably pretty safe. And I had a joke about how I was hoping that we would double our margin, that we would get 2,500 votes, that we would win by. And then, yeah, like you said, 10 a.m. numbers came out on election day. Our precincts were turning out really well. I think so. Basically, what my operation is I had the preliminary election turnout numbers for each precinct, and I put the then general numbers for each precinct for each time slot right next to each other, so that I could see, okay, at 10 a.m. in precinct 11-6, the this many more people had turned out than in the prelims. So yeah, 10 a.m. I was like, all right, JP has like I think it was like a 300 vote lead over West Roxbury, and so I was feeling good.
Okay.
Then the next shift, same thing. We had a little bit of a lead. Next shift, a little bit more of a lead. Then the shift right before the final numbers came out. So what was it, like 6 p.m. time slot? West Roxbury kind of closed the gap. And so I was like, oh no, we might actually be in a little bit of trouble here.
Okay.
And
because
so then
I will say at K's, when we went through Matt McCloskey's first, we kept refreshing. And at one point, without going into all the ward and precincts, I looked and literally I forgot that, you're supposed to be very, stoic. We were like hood CNN. And I just lost it. So I know that point that you're talking about, because I looked at the numbers and I was like,
no. So what you're talking about is that after the polls closed,
oh, okay.
Yeah, that was Matt's spreadsheet that had it. Like, they're in Ward 20, so they had all of Ward 20 immediately.
Okay.
But Ward 20 is where Mary won over Kendra. And so when he only had those, it looked like Kendra was going to lose.
Thank you.
It was a whole thing. It was actually really funny because it made people really hyped when I walked into the election party and announced that we had won. So yeah, so it seemed kind of like we potentially might be a little bit closer than we thought. And then once we actually got all of the numbers back from JP and from West Roxbury, we saw that we had not only expanded our lead in JP, but we had reduced our deficit in West Roxbury very significantly. And so now we're at the point where she is ahead by 2,277 votes.
That's
only three.
Go ahead, Darrin. That's what is it? What's the word? I forgot.
Mandate margin.
Mandate margin. Yeah, that's it. Mandate margin. 2,200.
Yeah, almost doubling what we got in the prelim.
In a district race. Go ahead, Darrin.
You know what's interesting about that though? It's like, as you look at that analysis, the climate still is there's residual of white guilt that's still in the political climate, right? Like, to just be honest about it, like there's a level of guilt around continuing to keep things in the current state that they have been in, right? So it's like, if you play towards that, yeah, there's going to be that old resistance, but the majority just isn't there, right? And it's like, you can see that just in engagement. So if you're on the ground and you're doing engagement, I know when I was at the doors, or my folks was at the doors, they didn't come back saying they had negative experiences. All of the fear mongering between what's the cultural issues between the Asian and the Black and brown community, it didn't live there. Like it was like, we had you, Anthony, you shared the dialogue after the preliminary where it showed that Michelle was already across the city, and the precincts that she lost or did not come in first in were the wards and precincts where there were Black elected officials who were on the ballot, right? So it was that Dorchester and that Roxbury. So it wasn't that she wasn't there already. There was an 11,000 vote margin. So to see how she carried herself when the attacks came, when the lies came, where these different things came, she didn't sway. And I think that's why when you see the victory margin, it's the testimony of that's the climate that we're still in. We're still in that space. So when I seen the stuff come out with that Mary sent out there, and then the apology that wasn't an apology, it was like, all right, come on, like
hold on. So at least Mary made an attempt to apologize.
No, it wasn't an attempt to apologize.
It's like no.
It wasn't an apology. That's why I was like, it was an attempt at like, no, you're not going to get a pass. Those that are aware and engaged knew what this was about, and guess what? You're going to pay for it on election night. Long as Kendra didn't, she stayed the course. Like I felt that if Kendra or Michelle responded to the stuff that was coming from their way instead of just running the race that they've been running, then they would have potentially impacted themselves in a negative way. But staying the course works. Like
and that's the thing that like I feel like that's the big lesson, and I feel like it has implications for even like the national level. Is that when the other side tries to do the fear mongering, the way to win isn't to play into the fear mongering. It's to just double down and say, no, these are the things that are good for people. These are the things that I'm standing by.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, Mary was like, oh, Kendra wants to abolish the police and abolish prisons. And Kendra was like, look, I want to reimagine public safety in a way that, you know, we're not just violently arresting our way out of crime. We're just trying to figure out how to stop crime from happening in the first place. She didn't say, no, I want to lock everyone up. Like, and that's why she won.
And to your point, and then I want to throw something to Darrin. You said that it has implications. The thing that's interesting is, and Darrin, I want you to describe. Anthony described what Kendra went through, and you made reference to the fact of what Michelle went through. And so, if you could describe that after I asked Anthony this, and Darrin, you can give your input on this too. Darrin referred to white guilt, and so in some sects, of course, Black and brown folks is like, wait, what? Really? So it caused us to be like, nah, we're going to double down and go even harder. But Darrin, the point that you raised, the second implication, Anthony, that you raised, and you bring your two thoughts together, is it also increased those allies who are with us, as you referred to before. And I saw the tweet. So I was with Mary, and then I saw her tactic. I'm voting for Kendra. Not only voted for Kendra, I seen tweets where people were out stomping for her. And so with that being said, Darrin, any thoughts on that? And then let people know, because I talked about it and maybe people just think that I'm hearing stuff or whatever, but Michelle experienced some racism too from folks lighter than me and folks within all three of our levels of melanin.
No. The fear mongering was still in play, right? It was how they responded to it, and that's where the mandate margin is relevant, right? To be like, it didn't work. Like your approach was clearly not where the community and the residents of Boston is at right now, and that's what the results of this election season brought out. People are going to look at their messaging. They are going to look at their tactics. They are going to look at how they communicate with people that they want their support from. You can't be Johnny come lately to communities thinking that works anymore, right? Like you can't pretend to act like you're with us or you understand us in this window when you're trying to look for our support. It's not going to work anymore, right? What I've always said since being involved in this, I was like, we don't jump ship. We don't show up. When we start to show up, then you get to understand how we feel about you, right? And how we feel about the positions you're taking that's going to impact our quality of life. So with what Michelle kept saying, she said, and I, like you said, Anthony, doubling down. Yeah, I'm talking about what's possible. I'm not running on what's impossible, right? It's like, you want to keep going that way, I'm going to double down and show you exactly what I believe can happen. And here go a few examples that we can highlight. Did it happen because there wasn't resistance to change? No, there was resistance to change and things happened, right? Like that's what she was highlighting. Like, yeah, we're not going to get a free MBTA for the state of Massachusetts, but I can point to a bunch of examples in different cities because of this dialogue, these interactions, this communication that we figured things out. So you want to keep talking about what's impossible and staying the same, while I believe the majority of the residents in this city want us to start thinking this type of way and moving this type of way. So that's what I'm pointing to the city. The question is, whose campaign are they looking to rock with? And clearly, you lose by 40,000 votes. That's the mandate margin right there to say they're trying to see what you're trying to do over here, not what you was talking about. So, and again, it's campaigning. So I don't want anyone viewing this to think I have any personal issues with Anissa. I think she's a great person. How you campaign, though, is what made me campaign the way I campaigned in regards of support, to be like, let's go. Let's be out here. I'm willing to double down on a Woo vision. I'm jumping on the Woo train. And anybody rocking with me, come rock with her. Like, we want to hold it to what she's saying. So,
Anthony, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was just kind of jumping off one of your points, Darrin, that you know, the whole free the MBTA thing. Yeah, that is. I feel like there was that whole talking point that, like, oh, so much of Michelle's agenda, it takes place at the state house, but like, she was actually endorsed by a lot of state reps. She was endorsed by a lot of state legislators. What I will say is, because I have very little faith in the state house, to be honest, if they stand in her way, I'm very interested to see if she will back challengers to some of those folks. Because it is going to take that level to make something like the MBTA free. It's going to take that kind of, you know, collaboration across, you know, municipal, state, and federal lines to make shit like that happen. So I'm very interested to see that.
It's that sort of I find it funny because a lot of people were saying pie in the sky, and Darrin, I love how you framed it, where you caught a preach a little bit, where why focus on the impossible? Why don't we aim for the possible? You and I, that's, oh my God, that's how Darrin works. Darrin will start an idea way out in Mars, and then slowly but surely those that are working with him, we tell them to TikTok, and then, you know, it works its way backwards according to what, you know, is reality in place. And so it is a mentality. And you said, so there's a mandate margin. What is Anthony, I'll ask you first for your interpretation of the mandate, but Darrin came up with it, so we're going to let him define it. Mandate, what is that? We know what the margin is. That's the amount. That's the 40,000. But what is the mandate? How do you perceive the mandate based on what you've heard on a campaign trail on a citywide level? Yes, district, but you're in tune. What are a couple of things you view as the mandate? Anthony, you first.
Oh, me first?
Yeah, because Darrin made it up, so we're going to let him close it on that part. How do you view how do you view the
I'll probably define it after y'all finish y'all answers.
I mean, I think what it is just, you know, it's the district, it's the, you know, the seat that you're running for, the people of it saying, yes, what you are talking about is what we need to do. It's the fact that, so let's take, for example, Kendra talking about reimagining public safety.
Okay.
That is something that, you know, Mary tried to highlight, and it got us more votes. It got us a larger margin. And that tells us that this district overwhelmingly really wants to reimagine what public safety looks like.
It's her mandate. It's part of her.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So yeah, that's kind of how I view the mandate portion of it.
Of the margin. All right, Darrin, how would you came up with it. So what would you say the mandate, and then what are a couple of examples, and how does the mandate, and maybe we can get in now to the conversation about how that vision goes from, you know, a theory, with the impossible dream theory, into working our way backwards to reality. What's the mandate? How do you view the mandates, Darrin?
I view the mandate as you have public support to try to explore what you were just talking about and on the campaign trail, right? There's a level of public support that's saying you are screaming that these things are possible. We're supporting you in your approach to trying to figure that out, right? How that gets done in detail, I think, is where we're going to shift this conversation, right? It's not going to be, I always look at these elected officials in general as spokespeople for people, right? Like, it's like you're the messenger, and which direction are you guiding so that we are going to understand how our quality of life is going to be impacted, right? And if you talked about all the key issues that are resonating, like I love the phrase defund the police, because I love when people think that means take the money from the police. It's like, do you really think that we're going to live in a society where there's no police? It's like, but when you look at all the issues surrounding the police and public safety, then we have to reimagine what public safety looks like. Right? Like it's 2 + 2 = 4. But people that stuck in their ways, that think that they're going to be personally impacted because they know they're not doing their job, yeah, you should be concerned. Right. That's what reimagining what this looks like. It's like, maybe it's imagining it without you. Right. Like that's how that could be a reality. Right. And so that is of concern to people that would like things to stay the same, where it's like, well, if you know that you're not expendable, then you wouldn't be as concerned. Right. Like you'll sit back and be like, oh, I'm a valuable team player. So why would I be worrying about how I'm going to be impacted, especially when we're talking about transition? Right? Like people don't just come in and they got everything figured out. They have to still work with those that are currently in place so that it's a smooth transition, right? Like, so if you know that you're someone that gets the job done, and so with this mandate, I think how we see it is like, oh, we need some tangible things that needs to come out of the first 100 days. We need some tangible people that we can look at and be like, oh, if this person's there, if that person's there, I have a good sense they're going to be able to get the job done because they have a track record of getting the job done in the area that they focus on, right? So that's the execution side of it. But the mandate margin is saying that you got public support. Now, what are you going to do with it? How do you get the public involved, right? If you want to have that level of transparency, if you want that level of accountability, then you got to create space for it to happen, right? Like for it to say, I'm initiating this on behalf of the office, right? With a stroke of a pen, elected officials love saying that. You can change someone's life with the stroke of a pen. Like, well, let's see how quick you stroking. What type of lives are you impacting? These are the things that I'm hoping comes out of this. I didn't support Michelle because she was just had a good track record. She had a huge way of looking at things similar to what you described I do. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to shoot for the moon. If I miss, I'll be amongst the stars. I'm good. I'm not going to be upset at the end of the day, right? Like she was putting out those type of visions for the city to be like, throw everything at including the kitchen sink, and see what sticks, right? And I think if it sticks, we'll see the results and the improvement in people's quality of life. That's how we measure the performance. But the mandate came from, you got public support. Let's see what you do with it. Don't lose it. It's easy to lose the public too, right? Because we're impatient. We want change right now, like last week, right? So if you're not guiding, educating us along the way of how you're trying to do things, where you need support, where's some resistance coming from, if you're not doing that, it's going to, the way you got support will be the same way you end up losing support. And again, we don't jump ship. We just ain't going to show up for you. We ain't going to be there backing you up. Like, it's going to be like, yo, do it by yourself. So those are the things that I'm hoping it don't go that way, because we'll start seeing the people that she's surrounding herself around with that's going to be on the team. But again, it's early. I'm willing to give that window of time for transition. And I'm not the person that's unrealistic. It ain't going to happen in the first 100 days. We should be able to see things in the first 100 days.
At least see some efforts. And so what I heard from you all so far was, and Darrin, you talked about approach, and it's also the mandate. I was looking for, and we can have this convo too, what are the mandate? How do you all see the mandates as far as approach, people, and policy? So the approach to people and policy, what do you all see are her mandates dictated by what you heard while y'all were on the campaign trail? This time I'll start with Darrin.
I think what issues are prioritized to be addressed, or at least get the attention, right? I want to see mass and CAS get addressed immediately, right? Okay. That means there needs to be a cabinet level position to deal with the concerns that's going on over there right now. And somebody that's giving that's priority one. Housing. You can't keep talking about housing and we ain't trying to figure out which direction you're going to move housing in. Which ways are you going to approach issues to stabilize residents here in the city of Boston? Not no granular things, but immediate things. What can be, is there ways that you can cap some stuff off, right? Like, is there some ways that you should open up some avenues for things? That's been an address. And clearly, we're coming up on holiday seasons. How do you deal with the needs that are going to be present in the holiday seasons, from food, from shelter, from the wet weather? Like, these are things that in the first 100 days you're tasked with, because you're not starting in January, you're starting in November. So you're coming in during different things that the team you surround yourself by is going to determine how people are going to look at you in the beginning of the year, because your window is not the city council that's coming in. It's working with the folks that are currently in place. And that's where those are your former colleagues, right? Because there's a few new faces that's showing up on the city council, right? And I'm glad that we got the folks that we got in. But you don't get the January 100 days. You get the November to January, February 100 days. So you got to do it now. And this is how you're going to be measured in terms of your leadership. You're going to be measured in the first 100, not in the first 6 months.
I just wanted to go ahead.
You're up against that type of scrutiny, right? Like, with that mandate margin, people have some high expectations for what they're expecting from you, right? Like, and that's where who is guiding you, who's advising you, who's around you, who's that kitchen cabinet. Because if it's faces people don't recognize, there's gonna be some hesitation, right? You gotta balance that out too. These are just, again, because I know folks watch your show. This is free commentary on Freestyle Friday, right? So it's like, take whatever ideas and run wild with it. But these are some suggestions to make sure that it's a smooth and receptive transition to the new administration, to be like, make sure people realize that you're getting things started. It's not going to happen overnight, but you're going to have the right people involved providing you that support to getting it done. So that's what I think the mandate margin talks about.
No, that was good. And you made me think of two things. One consideration is we have to name the fact that she has technically, because business day
transition time, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, she has like literally 3 days this week, all of next week, and then Monday the 15th, and then the 16th. And so we want to name, because that's, if you remember, was it a forum? Oh, no, that was a meeting. No, I think it was a forum. There are phases of the transition. And so that's that sort of phase 2 where, it's going to be immediacy. So we want to name that, not an excuse, but we want to name at least from now to the 16th. Most people have that second Tuesday in November or first Tuesday until, as Darrin said, January. The other thing is that was actually just it until Anthony finishes. And I have one point. Anthony, based on you being out there, you can speak from the district, but you can also speak from, citywide, because they're probably the same. What do you consider the mandates? Darrin said mass and cast, housing, and the third one, Darrin, was it
the holiday season's approaching, so you're going to deal with it.
How are you going to handle the impact of COVID-19, the economy, and da-da-da-da-da? Okay, Anthony, is the mandates.
I mean, I agree with pretty much all of those. I definitely think specifically with housing, one of the big mandates is going to be around rent control, because that was such a hot topic this election cycle. Kendra was running as a supporter of rent control. Michelle was running as a supporter of rent control. I think that is going to be, and it's like, it's exactly like Darrin was saying, right? The flip side of the mandate is like, yeah, you have a lot of support to get it, to get this thing done. But if you don't get it done, like, immediately, people are going to be like, what the hell? And I think that, that's going to be very interesting to see how they work towards that, because it does seem like now at this point, a good amount of the city councilors also support rent control, right? I don't know if it's a majority, but
rent stabilization. We'll use the politically correct term.
Rent stabilization. Yeah.
She actually,
No, but that's the thing, right? Like, Michelle ran on rent control, and she won on rent control. And even, Mayor Janey, she was running on rent stabilization. And that was kind of a point that a lot of people were like, I don't know if that's really rent control or not. So I think that'll just be very interesting to see. I think definitely public safety was also a very big mandate. That was that was a huge part of our campaign. That was a very big point of contention. And I think environment also, both of them were running as very progressive, like Green New Deal candidates. Ed Markey endorsed both of them because of that. So
the other thing I want to ask is kind of based on what you all said is largely on what Darrin said, and then something I can't remember exactly it was what you said, Anthony, but it makes me pose the question to both of you. Do you think one of the easiest things Mayor-elect Wu can do to demonstrate her commitment to get the stuff done is how quick and to whom she surrounds herself? Darrin, you talked about it, but do you believe that that is one of the easiest things to do within the 2 weeks? Though you
It'll quell people's fears, right? Right now, like one of the things that I've experienced, right? So, like we got to be honest, we got 3 mayors in 1 year, right? And we have a strong mayor, weak city council, and I say weak in the sense of just what they have the ability
by charter. It's by charter. Yep.
By charter. So
hey,
when
but
I
we
look
got that
at
charter change.
Right, charter change is something that was definitely brought up as well, right? So when we're looking at like, is it realistic that she can identify key people that people can be, their fears can be quelled because they know who's advising her or who's in that type of position? Like
real.
That's what's gonna really that's something immediate that quells the fears, right? It doesn't stop the fear, it just quells it for a second to be like, all right, we see who you done picked for this person, this role, and we done seen this person. All right, cool. We know they got the history, they got the credibility. All that is going to matter, right? Because if you grit somebody that has no history, no understanding, no relationships, none of that, that's not going to sit well with a lot of people that's been doing the work, engaged on the issues and things like that. Like that's part of the balance, right? Like, and it's going to be an intergenerational, it seems like, administration where there is some people that, from the looks of the stage, are young, new, energetic, understand their craft in the area that they're in. But the only difference is they don't have that history, right? And if you don't have someone that can balance that history out to say, it didn't start because you got here, right? There was people that put in work to make it a little bit more comfortable for you to be able to explore the direction that you're interested in going in. And you're not going to discredit those individuals because those individuals still got a voice in the communities you need support to stay where it's currently at. And so that's what I'm hoping. Yeah, you can identify people now. That's more than enough. They might not even be doing the job yet, but knowing that they're in place and they'll be involved will go a long way, right? Like it's politics, right? Like that's how people look at people to be like, oh man, you partnered up with this person? Nah, that's a hookup. That's all that was. They ain't did nothing in this area. They ain't got no experience in this area. Why would you appoint them to this area? So
oh God, there's a few things to unpack there. And so while there is historical context that is needed, pulling outside of appointments and positions in City Hall, I put up a post the other day naming what you said, that what's going on now. And this wasn't no slight. This wasn't anything to do with the campaign. It was morely to do with the fact of what Darrin mentioned. I think we do need to, folks, a little bit older than me, maybe my age and older, need to step back and push that support and historical context, but let this next generation lead hand in hand, but we push and support them. And so Darrin, I wanted to, name that as well, because we're down to about maybe 8 or so minutes. The other piece is that one of the things that Darrin, I thought you was getting ready to go into this, and Anthony, I don't know if this has been your experience, but Darrin and I have backed, worked hard, campaigned, lost friends. Darrin does a little bit better with the hospitality and the general get along with everyone. My passion sometimes in my mouth. But we've lost friends. Darrin, I thought you was getting ready to go here to say that there is context to which, away from Michelle and the candidate, that folks like us, if we see any inkling that looks like something that happened before, it's a trigger. There is something, I'm going to do a panel on this. There is really something called political trauma. It really, really is. People think it's the candidates, but because the candidates, they always consider, what if I lose? When people believe in someone and then they want to, I'm being a little transparent here about some past stuff, and don't reach out to do stuff for personal, but to improve the quality of life, to which, Darrin, you keep referring. I thought you was getting ready to go there when you talk about, people looking, and it quells the fears, because That's a fear factor. I think at our level, let's say that where we move, we know that a part of moving in this space is you exude talent, you exude this. You can't really be effective and work on campaigns and not really understand and know the heart of the people, which will wind up being the constituents. And so there is a factor as we get ready to wrap up of dealing with if things don't go the way we have hoped. And that's just sort of in general. You know what I mean? And we've unfortunately, maybe because I'm the oldest, and then Anthony, maybe you the least, but we got some points of reference when it comes to some, political trauma in Boston. And so I just wanted to name that because Darrin, you said something that kind of, and people say you shouldn't use the TRI word, but it reminded me of the fact that some of us, I'll just speak for myself. I got some political trauma. If I see anything that looked like something I've been through with a candidate before, to Darrin's point, I've gotten better with it. Oh, but I can switch up real quick. I used to. Now I'm a little, I'm more understanding, mature. And we have to also name the fact that you don't know until you get in and see the books. You can have all the wonderful dreams and then you see the book. So just, naming that. Darrin, we'll have you close out. Anthony, your closing statements. What is it that you would say? There is this piece and you had, a wonderful Afro-Latina win, but there's still this notion within Black Boston that we could have. And Anthony framed it. Oh my God. Anthony said today, he said, if Black Boston had got organized, and I loved how he said it. He said, we would have been having a conversation with Andrea Campbell or Kim Janey. And the way he said it, it was like, oh, it was going to be Michelle in either Michelle 1 or 2 or whatever. But Anthony, what is it that you would say to Black Boston beyond November 2nd?
I mean, it's really just, hold the people that we have elected accountable. Don't take your foot off the gas. We really, now that we have gotten these people in office, it's up to us to make sure that they do what we got them in office for.
What does that look like real quick? Because we actually got like 9 minutes. I looked through, I got my glasses fixed. What does that look like to you, Anthony? Holding them accountable. We say that it's such a sexy buzzword in politics, but what is it, Darrin, like the what did you say? The approach. What does that look like, policy? What does it look like when it comes to people? Sorry.
Yeah, no. So what it looks like to me is I mean, it's getting organized. It's, constantly showing up to events to demand things from our elected officials if they're not giving it to us, harassing them, and just, like harassing them. It's like the stuff.
Is there a proactive approach? Is there a proactive participatory (1) approach?
Okay, yeah. If you're asking how do we ensure that they do, not just react to them not doing it. See, I'm a little bit cynical.
Good way to frame it. But we see a little
I'm cynical. yeah, I'm cynical. I just am always like, they're not going to do it.
Okay.
No, but I think it is just staying involved, showing up to the things that they are at, and being sure to be a part of that conversation. Bringing our own chair, like having that seat at the table. I think that's the way we make sure that our voice is heard. And I think, one of the hot topics of the District 6 race was that the issue of voting or not voting, and the issue of voter participation. And I think that, I understand people who have very little faith in the system who don't vote, but at the end of the day, the way that we will be able to restore that faith is by getting enough people to vote that politicians actually do have to listen to us. If Black Boston was the highest turnout demographic in the city of Boston, everyone would be listening to us about every single thing that we were demanding.
Post-election, because they listen to us pre.
Yep, exactly.
Is where, sorry.
No, I mean, you're right. You're right. The reason they listen to us pre-election is because we're large enough of a voting bloc that we're valuable at that time, but we're not large enough in terms of turnout for them to be forced to listen to us for the entire time. So
wait. I'm gonna push back a little. I got to push back a little
because
that voting bloc that does participate, if it was organized after the vote, right? Like it could move those issues, right? That's why it's just a slight pushback of saying can't let our foot off the gas after the election day, right? It's saying like, and that's why I said you get a little bit of time for transitioning, right? But you don't get too much in my mind, right? Like, it's like there's several electeds that have fall short when it comes to my expectations on baseline of what should be required.
On
baseline is saying you need to be vocal and visible. You need to let me know what you're doing, right? How can I get involved? How can I participate if I'm not aware, right? And if you're going to be in that role, shouldn't that be part of your job? Now, us as a collective demanding that is saying, no, we don't have to wait for them to create an event. We can create events that they would want to come to, right? Like, we can create spaces that they would want to be in. So if they see that we're moving organized, then they will want to be in those spaces where that organization is taking place, right? That dialogue is happening so that they're better informed from those on the ground experiencing the issues, right? But because we're not as organized, we're very reactionary, right? We need to be a little bit more proactive to the issues, right? Like, so that we're not only reacting and looking for the Band-Aid approach, right? I came through and gave y'all a couple of dollars. I gave you 4 or 5 jobs. No, we're looking at long-term sustainability, economic and social development. And that's why the projects that I choose to explore, I always tell people, I stay out of people's way. I do my own thing. Why? Because there's plenty of stuff you can do if you really want to help people, right? But if you're not looking for the titles, you're not looking for the accolades, you ain't looking for the recognition, most people are looking for that as the reason why they're getting involved in service. What about if you just got involved because you know, for me, it changed my life. Like, that's why it literally changed my life. I could probably and would have probably been dead by now, or locked up facing a life sentence. I know what life I was in, and public service gave me an opportunity. So when people see the toy drive, people see the K's Oasis, people see the support, it's like, how am I doing it? Because someone gave it to me. It was like, yo, you can do this work. And I'm like, wow, this is what this work is about. Humility. I love the word humility in this form of work because a lot of people don't know what that means because they don't show it in their actions. Stop looking for the attention. Look for the work. It brings you a lot of attention. You know, it's like too much sometimes that you're like, yo, hold on, you got to stay a little distance. So the work and accountability is we don't need permission to hold people accountable. It's saying, how do you show up and make them uncomfortable? You can't do your job because you're not doing your job. That's how you're not doing your job. Like, you're doing too much stuff that don't make no sense, right? It looks silly. And we should feel comfortable because they're going to come ask us for our vote and our money anyway. So why not make sure you tell them they work for you? Like, yo, you want something from me, do your job.
And they get part of it through donations, and they ask for our vote. And guess where they get the other part of the money from? Taxpayers.
They got their salary right from us, right? You pay taxes. You went to the corner store and you bought something. Guess what? You contributed to their salary. You're their boss. Own it. Empower yourself to be like, oh, I'm not intimidated by your title. Actually, I realize you work for me. And this is what some of the things that's going on in my life. That's why I somewhat keep a distance from a lot of politicians, because I'm like, you maybe don't want me to ask you about some things you can be doing with your job. I kind of know. So
I listen, I appreciate both of you. Both of you were named today, and we've celebrated Queen, a woman, Michelle becoming the mayor. We celebrated the Queens, Brianna and Jessica, who was a part of that. Another, we mentioned Mary and Sarah and whatnot. But today we were very specific in naming Darrin. A lot of Mattapan and Dorchester was attributed to you and 1199 and other workers in that space. Anthony, we know what you did in holding down District 6. But we just wanted to celebrate you all as kings, as Black men that are still relevant voices in Boston Poly. And though we know that one of our Black candidates, and we can talk about this later, but I'm hearing that David, in some, not service, some building trades, didn't even get invited when he reached out to get the endorsement process. Now,
residuals of old Boston. Just look at it from that angle. Like, unfortunately, like, there's some spaces that are still occupied by people that, need some undivided attention, right? Like, and there's going to be that type of potential approach in the next 4 years. But the only way we're going to see it is if the person that's in the executive seat empowers people that she knows will approach these issues in this type of way in order to move the agenda that she discussed on the campaign.
You got a lot of familiarity with unions, Darrin. Everyone have a wonderful day. Today is Friday. Anthony, I appreciate you, man. People have reached out. And so
it's the man. I just want to let people know publicly, I have a lot of respect for Ant. I know what he does, and I know how he does it, and he does it with a passion. Like, Ant, you gave me my kudos. Like, I love seeing I don't like writing. Anybody that knows me knows I do not like writing or putting things on paper, right? Like, but I stress it.
Did we have a whole campaign
I'm gonna give
last
you your
year?
flowers now. So
hold on. We had a whole campaign last year to talk about pop off, put it on paper. He gonna talk about.
I don't like to write nothing down. Trust me, I'm still old school. I got an old soul. Like, my word better be good before anything.
No, Anthony, we definitely appreciate you, man, because people are really and a couple of people said they're coming with their offering ready. They want a post-election numbers dig in. They want one with you on that. And I've been very sensitive about having men and women. And so, I want Jed, Carlos, and Darrin in the room when we do that, because that would need to be a Java After Dark, like a 90-minute, because y'all watching, we love this stuff is sport. It improves quality of life. But when it gets into the mechanics and just some of the nuances and dynamics of the electoral process, as you say, Anthony, we're nerds. We like this stuff, so
numbers games is real. Numbers is what matters in this game.
Darrin, numbers. I'm just
you seen what that Ward 14 did. You seen what that 18 looked like.
Yup.
See, now we're getting into poly speak. All right, y'all, have a wonderful afternoon. We are going Darrin and I are going to talk further, and Anthony, we'd love to get you on the panel there and working out how we're going to do that. We did the post-election watch party, and a lot of you have reached out and said this needs to be once a month in a social setting with people like Carlos and Darrin on screen, or just talking on a panel with some food, some libations, and just really, digging in. And so that is coming, and we're going to stay consistent with it. And so that will be one of those spaces to which Darrin refers, that when they get ready to run or they need a pulse, they're going to come to K's and chill with Java, with Jimmy and Ant and Carlos and other folks.
No nonprofit restrictions over here. We go to a for-profit space, so we ain't got to worry about it.
With that being said, everyone have a wonderful weekend. Get registered to vote. There is redistricting that Maya and Gina Cristo from Rivera Consultants, I need to reach out to them and book their date. They're going to come and talk about that. And I think that is it for me. And we'll see you guys Monday at 9 a.m. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Gentlemen, I appreciate both of you. As soon as the millions come in, not the 100 million, as soon as the millions come in, I'll make sure to write y'all a check, Jesus. Especially Anthony. Anthony got Darrin. They be sending Anthony.
Right, I got some things we can talk about. Trust me, you could definitely be part of this little movement I'm doing around here. So,
yes, sir.
Hey, I'm not doing anything now, so all
right. We need to connect. You know how I move out here. Very quiet but strategic.
All right, y'all have a wonderful day. Thank y'all for tuning in, everybody.
See y'all later.